Welcome to another episode of SPL Express as we look ahead to Matchweek 13 in the Singapore Premier League. Lots of exciting matches coming your way, and here to help us break it all down, we have Rhysh, Roshan, Rai with us. But first, let's check out the results from over the weekend. Tampines Rovers picked up 3 points against the Young Lions with a 1-0 victory, while Balestier Khalsa earned their third straight win, edging past Brunei DPMM 3-2. Tanjong Pagar snapped a 4-game losing streak by beating Geylang International, and the result of the weekend, Lion City Sailors beating Albirex Niigata for the first time in their league history. And that means Albirex lose pole position to Tampines in the standings. Sailors remain third, just a point off of Albirex. Balestier meanwhile pulling away from Geylang International in fourth, while Tanjong Pagar climbed to sixth. So here's a look at what's coming up this week. Albirex entertain Balestier Khalsa on Friday, while Young Lions and Geylang International will be looking to gain some points when they meet on Saturday. TPMM's clash with Tampines Rovers has been shifted to Sunday. They kick off at the same time as the clash between Tanjong Pagar and Hougang United. So let's dive into those games, starting with Young Lions up against Geylang International. Young Lions making the news last week after it was announced that head coach Philippe Au will be stepping down, or rather granted a leave of absence for the moment. Roshan, what have you made of that news, and how will it affect the Young Lions?
Listen, I'm not sure he's going to be coming back. I think that might be the end of Philippe Au as the head coach of the Young Lions. I feel like it's been coming for a while. I feel like I got that sense that maybe Philip had a lot on his plate to deal with. There was quite a bit of pressure on him as well. There were lots of questions about the Young Lions and their results this season, and he was quite happy as well to come out and say quite a bit, in his interviews with the press, with the media. And so I felt there was something that was going to come along anyway. In terms of someone else coming in and taking charge, Fadzul Hasni is the one who's been given a job at the moment. It could be something that's a sort of a refresh for the players, a new voice in there and perhaps new ideas. I saw them in the last game against Tampines, and they tried to play a little bit more defensively.
Do you see much of a difference in the game against Tampines?
Yeah, they tried to play a little bit more defensively. They tried to hit longer passes in behind, play more on the counter-attack, but the quality was still lacking. And even if you got Mourinho or Guardiola to come in, it's still going to take quite a bit of time for it to get going because they have to work with the quality that's available to them. They were missing a few key players. I understand that, but some of the basic things like the simple passes, the simple control in those situations were an issue for them and have been an issue for them. Going forward, some of the positive parts for them at least were the fact that they were able to create some chances, and I think as long as it was 1-0 against Tampines, they felt that there was an opportunity for them to get something in that game.
You mentioned key players missing out.
Yeah.
Who is one or two players? Who would you name a key players for this Young Lions squad if there's a turn the season around?
Easily Jordan Imaviwe. For me, I think he's the best player in that Young Lions side. I think he's got good technical quality. I think he's a very intelligent footballer.
But on the topic of Jordan, what's his best position though?
Yeah, listen, that's one for him and his coaches to go and figure out, right? I think he's a very good central defender. I think if you're a side that likes a left-footed central defender, and you like your central defenders to be calm and composed on the ball, he's great to be in that position. I think he's very strong defensively. I think he's a good passer. And when you're at the back, you have a little bit more time on the ball. You can see things a little bit better in front of you. But he's had to do a job out on the left. He's had to do a job in that central striking role at times. And still, he's done well. He still has really good technique that he shows in tight spaces. His ability to hang on to the ball, link up with his teammates. He is a player that I really, really like. Look, again, you asked me where I think his best position is. I think it's in central defense. I think that's where he can really make a huge impact. But wherever he's playing now for the Young Lions, he's still contributing and he's still trying to help this side out.
Let's shift our focus to Geylang International. They have not been great in the last few games. Do you think the results have matched the performances though?
I think the last game they were perhaps a little bit unfortunate to lose. I think they make a few errors that they only have themselves to blame with. I think they create opportunities. They do score goals here and there. But when you're making all these defensive lapses, when you can't deal with the opposition threat, and when you allow them too many opportunities and you concede goals easily, then it's a recipe for disaster.
You spoke about goals. Bezakor, scored a fantastic goal.
Yeah.
Do you think he's done enough this season though?
I think so. I think he works incredibly hard, Bezakor. I think a lot is asked of him. Having said that, he's only scored 1 goal in his last 8 SPL matches. So I think on that side of things, perhaps he'll be looking at that thinking maybe I can provide a bit more of a consistent contribution on the goal-scoring front. But he's not an out-and-out striker, right? Someone else is essentially last season was Zuzul, who was an out-and-out striker. Bezakor was then contributing his share of assists and goals. I still think he's a great player for Geylang. I think he helps them a lot in attack. And he's being asked to do a lot of work. He's being asked to create. He's being asked to score goals now, and also help the side out on the defensive part of the game. So I think he has a lot on his shoulders, and I think he needs a little bit more help from some of the supporting cast as well. And maybe goals from midfield, coming from midfield positions, and those areas of the pitch for Geylang.
So let's move on to our feature game. It's Albirex up against Balestier. Albirex obviously coming to this one off that defeat against the Sailors. But let's talk about Balestier. They've hit some pretty good form recently.
Goal scoring form, Look, they are looking good, creating chances. And we've spoken about this previously, about how they do create opportunities well. They are creative in an attacking sense. They've got Leto Taniguchi getting them goals and creating chances. They've got Daniel Goh, who's been in a great run of form. He's finding the back of the net as well, which really helps. Hoshino scored against DPMM the last time out, and that will help him. Hopefully grows in confidence. And Sugita also getting on the score sheet, so potentially that could help him in terms of that confidence going forward. I don't have an issue with them in attack. I think they're creative. I think they create opportunities. They score goals. It's at the back where it's such a concern for me. That defensive balance is all over the place. Players are making individual errors. They just don't have the quality in that back line. They don't have that leadership in that back line. They're just not being good enough. They're the worst defense in terms of goals conceded in the league, and yet they're in fourth spot now. Yep. And that's a sign of how much that attack is carrying this Balestier Khalsa side at the moment.
How do you think they're going to fare against Albirex, though?
Last time they came up against each other, Albirex Niigata found it pretty easy. They hammered them at 6-1. And I feel like Albirex, after that defeat to the Lion City Sailors, are something of a bit of a wounded animal here. They will want to make a statement. And in attack, they are a side who are very good going forward. They are strong defensively as well, so there's good balance in this Albirex Niigata side. And they will look for a response. Remember the last time they lost in the league was to Tampines Rovers by a 0-0. The next game, they came back 6-1, 6-1 against Geylang and then Balestier Khalsa, and they won 5 in a row going into that Sailors match. So I expect an Albirex Niigata response here, and I'm leaning towards an Albirex Niigata win just because I think that Balestier will struggle defensively.
Speaking of teams struggling defensively, Brunei DPMM, they've struggled defensively. They lost their last game 3-2 to Balestier Khalsa, and this is what the head coach had to say.
We concede goals. We just concede rubbish goals again, and that's just so frustrating because they work so hard. I thought the midfield players, I thought Kimi, Farhan, Shafiq were incredible. Obviously, I think their average age of 11 years old, whatever it is, but no, it's just not good enough for us. And I've told them under no circumstances what I feel. So. Can't keep conceding 3 goals every game and then you think you're going to get 3 points. It's not going to happen.
So Adrian Pennock, they're clearly frustrated, Roshan. What have you made of this DPMM defence?
Yeah, I mean, what he said is absolutely right. You make all those sorts of errors and you allow opposition to score goals quite easily. The basics in there are lacking in terms of closing players down and closing the spaces down. You cannot just allow, for example, a player to run into the area without a challenge coming in and you just keep backing off and backing off.
Is it down to individual mistakes or is it just down to quality?
Both. There's a lack of quality. There's a lack of defensive structure. There's a lack of good shape in that side. And there's a lack of defensive intensity in this DPMM team. They are very far away from DPMM sides of the past in terms of even if they didn't have that necessary technical quality, you could expect a physical battle against DPMM. And this is not a DPMM side that has that at all. Just the one win in their last 5. They're going to be one of those sides that are going to win one, lose a couple, draw one, win another one. That's very hard for them to try and find any sort of consistency. But defensively, they are a little bit all over the place at the moment.
Well, they come up against Tampines Rovers, who in the long run will want to score goals. And this is the kind of game that Tampines will be looking forward to.
You like to think so. When you look at the table, yes, ultimately you concentrate on getting the wins and getting the points on the board. But you never know. There could come a situation where it's really tight and then you come to the end of the season, it goes down to goal difference. We have had league titles won and lost on that. And so when you look at the table now, when you look at the goal difference, Albirex are far and away a lot stronger in that department than Tampines Rovers. So there is going to come a point where you start to feel with Tampines that is going to be important for them. I go back to the game against Young Lions, for example, 23 shots that they had in that match. They were dominant. They were the dominant side, and they only scored 1 goal. So I think that is, to me, something that they have to consider as well. I think there are certain situations. Tampines this season are quite different from Tampines in the past. They have a lot better balance. They have a lot better game management. And I think maybe at times that game management takes out the ability to score a few more goals, maybe. So yeah, while they are winning matches, credit to them. They are very nice and balanced. I got no issue with that. I think they're one of the better sides to watch in terms of being very complete. But I think when they have opportunities to really kill the opposition off and rack up those goals, it will help them along in terms of the title race.
Well, let's talk about the final game they were previewing for this week. It's Tanjong Pagar up against Hougang. Hougang coming into this one after a 2-week break, and it was a good break for them as well after they picked up their victory. Yeah.
Yes, and after that win, a late one. I think on the one hand, you probably want to say they would have liked to have continued with that momentum.
Would they have? Because Marco needs time with his boys as well, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, he had that couple of weeks break as well to work with them, and then had some time on the training ground to work with them now after that break. So there is sort of that side of it, and I guess you can kind of look at it in both ways, whether you want to keep up with that momentum or whether, okay, great, we got that win, let's work on a few more things now, which is always helpful, time on the training ground. Look, I'm glad for them. I'm happy for them. Let's see that consistency now, because I think they've won that game. They've got a decent run of matches to come in that sense. This one is one that they should be looking at as a chance to really put another 3 points on the board. And hopefully Marco's ideas are starting to come through the squad a little bit more. That win is really going to give them that confidence boost now to believe in themselves.
What was the positive you saw from that game?
The fact that they didn't collapse in the second half. How many times this season have they, going into the second half of matches, conceded goals and looked like they were just completely out of the game? This time around, they actually looked mentally a bit more solid, and they conceded sort of a late equalizer, but they found a way through again. They found a way to get a winner, and that can signal a shift in the mentality. That can signal a shift in the confidence levels of the players. I've said all along, this is a side that's too good to be where they are. But you really have to show it on the pitch. You need to take your opportunities and keep that mentality and that confidence going. And I think this is, again, another game that they look at and say, we probably should be winning this one.
So that will be an interesting watch, and so will this. Our feature game of the week, it's Albirex Negata up against Balestier Khalsa. That's on Friday, and our coverage begins at 7:15 p.m. That's all the time we have for this week's episode. Make sure you tune in to our SPL YouTube page for all the matches live. We'll see you next week again on SPL Express.